Welcome to the Cashflow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Project Podcast. Today we have a special guest of the show, Robert Benenate. Robert is a New Orleans native with over 30 years of construction and renovation experience. Has influenced major projects, most recently including a $1.7 million condo conversion project, and has a deep passion for real estate. He's learning the business from the ground up, flipping houses, house hacking to treat a damaged property, which I would love to hear some more about. He's just a hardworking guy. So we're glad to have you on the show this morning, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So those who may be not familiar with you and how did you get started in real estate? Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got going.
Yeah, so I've been in renovation construction from sales to flipping houses. But when I started, my first investment was actually a flip. I was doing a lot of renovation construction on the side from a W-2 in 2008. And it was right after Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. We call it just Katrina. But New Orleans area was pretty devastated. I was doing a lot of renovation, but I found a house that would sat for 2 years and got that house and flipped it from roof down. Did very well with it. And after that first investment, I took that profit and rolled it into my first double, my duplex. So that was in 2008 also. I flipped the house in 5 months. And a house hack. That was my first house that I ever lived in. The sad thing was I got divorced. It turned the page and I never stopped after that. So that was kind of how I started in the investment on the personal side for me. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was a tough time. I was in Texas during that time in Houston, so I saw firsthand, how tough it was for a lot of folks. So, a great way for you to make lemonade out of some lemons, because I know that was a rough period for a lot of people. So, yeah, kudos to you.
Yeah, it was. I helped my parents rebuild their house, get them back in the house, and then that's how I found the house that I flipped, which was right down the street. The house that I grew up in. So that's how I found it and did very well with it. So obviously I saw that dollar amount and kept flipping. I also bought more buy and hold and have rentals to this day and do very well with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I got a good question about, off of that. So, you obviously saw what was a pretty devastating situation, across the Gulf. There's a lot of people negatively affected, of course. Tell us a little bit about, how did you get that mindset of seeing, an opportunity there where, I think most people would have probably just seen, all the negative. And of course, that's kind of what the media portrays a lot of times, unfortunately. But you saw it as, hey, you know what? No, there's opportunity in this rubble. Obviously it's catapulted you, propelled you forward. You've obviously established yourself as a good career now, but in real estate. But how did you develop that mindset? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it was a great question. It was devastating going through that. My whole family, from my parents to my daughter, aunt, uncles. I was thankful that I was presently I was married, and the area we didn't get a lot of damage, but just being in the renovation construction sales part of it, I saw a lot of contractors, a lot of subcontractors starting to flip houses, and I just saw it from on that side of it, and I said, this is, I'm doing renovation already, so it was a big opportunity. They had, properties all over, and I've always been a person to always look forward. I never want to look behind and always want to grow and whatever I want to do. And just saw the opportunities from contractors I was dealing with. The big obstacle was really the money. In all my years, it's like, I could never afford to flip this house. I could never do that. And just talking to different contractors, they gave me some pointers. And I borrowed the money to buy that first house. So that first house, I didn't take a penny out of my pocket. I borrowed the money, down payment, went to a bank. I've got I was approved for the money to buy the house and the construction loan, all wrapped in one. And that's how I started. I didn't, no money out of my pocket, but just had that mindset that I wanted to do this. And I've always wanted to be in real estate, and just saw the opportunity and jumped in. I had friends that were like, "You crazy? What? You can't do that." Especially right now, a lot of people were homeless, and not a lot of people were coming back to New Orleans. And I'm like, hey, it's an opportunity. If I never do it, I'm never going to find out if it's going to work or not. And I flipped that house in 5 months and made $32,000 on it.
That's awesome. And think of all the hundreds of people that have probably driven past or walked past that house as it sat there for 2 years and either just didn't even think it like that, or didn't have that entrepreneurial mindset of there's opportunity there. They're probably thinking, let somebody should bulldoze that eyesore or something like that. But that really is something that sets people apart in this business, is like Steve said, seeing that opportunity when it's out there and taking advantage of it, because there's so many people that don't. So that is awesome. You were able to see that and now helping other people, right, see those opportunities as well.
Right. And the biggest thing is I got in there and helped gut the place, cut down. They had bushes 4 feet tall. I mean, I was in there 90% of the work I did. But the way I looked at after, and especially that time, is I gave someone an opportunity to come back to New Orleans and buy a house that they could live in. There was a lot of people that were displaced. So that was the opportunity that I thought, in the long run, after I fixed that up, that I was going to sell it to somebody that really needed a home.
No, that's great. I think that's something a lot of people overlook, right? Like, people outside of the business, they don't see that aspect of like, no, we're actually, taking a house or taking an apartment complex or whatever, and being able to provide, solid, safe, housing, where there may not otherwise be, like that. Like, how long would that house have sat there, if you hadn't come along and recognized, for one, it's an opportunity, but it is a way to give back, right? It is a way to kind of get New Orleans back on its feet, or the community back on its feet, right? So no, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to look at it in a positive mindset. Definitely helps.
Well, fast forwarding a little bit, kind of something more recent. Tell me about, tell our audience about a more recent deal that you've invested in. How did you find it? How did you structure it? Is it still residential? Are you still doing that? Are you obviously into other projects, maybe on the commercial side as well? So yeah, tell our audience a little bit more about what you got going on now. How did you find it? How did you take it down?
Well, the most recent, and this is going to be, again, my personal side on a single family side. I'm more trying to transition into multifamily, being on an ownership side, but this opportunity came up. And one thing that I always look for is never, always look for different opportunities, matter if it's single family, multifamily, or whatever your goal is for. So this property came up, it was on the market. It was for like $34,000. It was a single family house, but it happened to be in the same neighborhood as some of my duplexes, right around the corner. I knew the market really well. And the trick, and what was kind of creative about this, it was a house that was actually originally a mobile home. But because I knew the construction end of it, I went and looked at this house, and it was on the market for months. I found that the whole house was built around it. So the actual outside of the mobile home was not exposed. It was inside that was the mobile home. So it was all framed 2x4. It had its own pitch roof. They added a garage to it, additional room that could be another bedroom. But I walked in, and I mean, it was in really bad shape. But I just had the vision and went for it. I knew the construction end of it. And I bought that house for $34,000. At this time, it's now on the market for $109,000. About $25,000 in it. And looking at that, it never rule out anything, because even for some reason this house doesn't sell, at 109,000, I can turn around and run it for 1,000. And so, don't ever look a different direction. Always look for opportunities and see if it makes sense, obviously, and then take those steps and take actions to make those things work if you can. And this is another property that no money out of my pocket. I went to an investor and said, "Hey, I needed 50,000 to put into this house." I offered 8% return and give everything back to him in 6 months. So again, no money out of my pocket, no note. And once I sell the house or run it, I give them back the full amount with 8%. So it only cost me $2,000 to borrow 50,000.
I like those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's opportunities, and being really creative is something that I've really learned to try to do. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into syndication, JV, and that's kind of what I'm learning more about to get into the scale more into the multifamily, to be an ownership on that side.
Well, yeah, you get in there. Kind of what's even just getting to that point. Like, what do you see today as an obstacle that you faced along the way, and how did you overcome that?
So I kind of touched base just a minute ago. For years, I wanted to scale into multifamily, and just like I mentioned, the money was the mindset that I was always telling myself, how can I get into that? So I started looking into it. I'm sure everybody knows Ryan Cleef. So I've never been to a multifamily real estate convention, and I mentioned it to my wife. Hey, I feel stagnant. I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not scaling where I want to be. So I booked a plane flight to Denver. Did not know anyone at all. Bought a ticket to Ryan Cleef's event in Denver, and that was last May. And went out there by myself, networked. I told myself that I was going to meet everyone that was on that stage. And to this day, I am very good friends with quite a few of them, and pretty personal, where I can call them and ask them anything. And I've actually partnered up with a couple people that were on that stage to this day. I'm partnered up with them with either a business or multifamily venture.
Oh, that's
Nice.
awesome.
That sounds very familiar, right, Steve? That was my my story is pretty much the same thing. So I had 20 units, all duplexes, and I hit like this wall, and I couldn't scale anymore. Like I couldn't figure out why I couldn't grow anymore. But everything like that I built at that point was just like maxed out. I was running out of funds. My systems were all maxed out. I was running out of like time wise. I didn't have enough time in the day. But that was the same thing. I got on a computer and was like, I see these other people doing it. Like they're scaling, they're growing. And I found another mentor group like Brad Khalif. I went to the Wheelbarrow Profits, one of the Jake and Gino guys, and same thing. Bought a ticket, flew out there, and the rest is history. A year later, I've 10 times my portfolio since then, or our portfolio, Steve. And then because of getting around those people, right, getting around those people on that stage and those presenters, and just immersing yourself in that culture. So that is awesome that you took the leap into that, and you're reaping the benefits. Plus, Rod's very good. I went to his event in LA last year, I think, and he's very good. He's very he's like the Tony Robbins of real estate. So it was a lot of like mindset and like break down those limiting beliefs. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I happened to miss that one. I wish I would have. I know a lot of people, that I would network with in California, LA, San Diego, but I did go to Denver, and I went to the one in Baltimore.
Nice. Switching over to me for the few questions here. So as you're going into multifamily, there's always a big obstacle of people trying, like, how do they find deals? And do they talk to brokers? Do they go off market? Do they try to find like these investment groups? So as you're going to, through that transition, going into multifamily, what is your strategy to find deals? That's always one of the biggest obstacles is deals and money. So one of those, how are you looking for your multifamily deals?
I mean, mostly brokers. I mean, when you're looking at bigger deals, most of the time those are going to go through brokers. Also have relationship with wholesalers. So what's really good is a lot of your wholesalers really do not know multifamily, and I have not purchased one from a wholesaler yet because they really don't know, what they're looking for. But I am working with a couple of them to help, teach and grow that part of it. So that's one thing that I'm trying to work with and finding the deals. But most of them come from brokers and networking with others. I mean, I have people I've networked with all over the place from California, Atlanta. My market is more for the South, so Louisiana, Mississippi. So as people know who I am, if a good deal comes up, a lot of people, forward me those deals, and I would look at it either from boots on the ground, look at them to purchase myself.
Got it. So what is your favorite, as a switching gears over to more of the asset management type hat, what's your favorite strategy for increasing NOI on a property, from either increasing the income or decreasing the expenses? Do you have like a certain strategy or a package that you, every time you look at a deal or get a deal, you're like, this is what I'm going to implement? Every time I do this thing, it works really well in my market or my deals.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, really. When you're looking at, the property itself, obviously you want to see how it can improve the outlook of the property. So you bring people in. Obviously, those the look of the property is going to create more flow into the property. But looking at the expense, maintenance expense, turnover expense, that tells you a lot of things. So really depending on what you see in the due diligence of the property really depends on what you can do to the property to help the NOI. So there's really a lot of different things. So looking at the property, you may want to, with the interior, if it has carpet, eliminate the carpet. Up front, that's going to be an expense that you put in, but your turnover is going to go down a lot lower. Instead of getting a carpet machine to clean it, maybe change it. If you put a vinyl plank in, your turnover is going to turn, your time is going to be half that time. Mm-hmm. And it's also going to be a lot cheaper. They go in, they sweep and mop, and they're out. Just that's a very good tip. Far as the interior turnover, obviously that eliminates the expense. You also want to look at why the people are moving out. If there's a lot of turnover, you want to find out that reason so you can help eliminate that expense. Turnover, having a lot of turnover is a lot of expense. Making your improvements and knowing the market. So knowing the market for the competitors, if they are, what are they doing to increase rents? So knowing that part of it. So it's a lot of different things to look at to help either lower the expense or to increase rent.
Yeah, absolutely. So you hit on one thing that I think is very overlooked in due diligence, and it's secret shopping. That's one thing that we do, and we secret shop the property we're buying. Either we have our assistant call or something like that. Like, how is the management? What's the management say when they pick up the phone? Are they rude? Are they nice? Are they inviting? When they go visit the property, what's it like? Are they treat you like you're an inconvenience as a tenant, a prospective tenant? Like, what's that first impression? And then also, to your point, going to the competitors, a lot of the assets we invest in is that, C-class, workforce housing, and not a whole lot of amenities. So we want to go around the other properties, the comps in the area, and secret shop them to make sure that, what they're offering, because we don't want to put our premiums on our rent, so high, and then not even realize that we're going to be capped by this property across the street because they have covered parking, a pool, and a rec center. And there's no point in us, we'll overshoot our numbers on our underwriting on what we think we can get because we didn't secret shop the competitor next door, things like that. So very, very important tip there. Like you were saying, you want to know what that property is offering, and then also who the competitors are in the neighborhood and what they're offering. So don't underestimate the value of secret shopping during due diligence. It's a very, very important thing to do.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most important things to do, to definitely look at that.
Absolutely. So on the construction side of the house, not a lot of investors have experience in development and construction. So how has that helped you build your business, having that type of experience?
I was just talking about this recently, and knowing the construction, knowing, and just for instance, the exterior is to know, what kind of expense you're going to have to put out in the future or at the present time when you buy. And that could be from the roof, the siding on the buildings, and knowing the construction. A lot of people miss this one, and it may not sound very important, but it is. But in other words, the outside siding could be wood, or it could be hardy siding. I'm not sure if you know that, but wood, eventually, if you don't paint it, caulk it very well, eventually it's going to rot. Mm-hmm. Hardy siding, on the other hand, is like concrete. You can paint it, so your future projections on cost could lower that because of the material, the siding. So there's a lot of things to look at. Also when you walk in a property, if you see uneven concrete, if you see puddling in the grass, that could be because your plumbing is cracked, or it may crack because you have settling going on. So those kind of things, if you do not see water puddling or anything like that, you may want to put that into a reserve it may happen. The same thing with trees. It sounds like it's not that important, but it is when it comes to construction. Your plumbing is all underneath the ground, and a lot of things can affect it. Trees is one of your biggest things, but you really don't know. And obviously in the due diligence, that's some red flags that I look at when you do your due diligence, is to try to bring in, a plumber to scope the pipes. So that's something that you can definitely do. And then really going in the interior and knowing the upgrades that'll help. Like I said, the vinyl flooring is one of the best things you can use. Not only because it lasts very long, and then also the turnover. It turns the amount of time to turn over a unit really cuts out the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on the piping, we're going through that on a property we are under contract with now. We always scope the lines. That's absolutely foot stomp. Always scope the lines of your properties. In this one, it was interesting. The cleanouts were cast iron. It's a 1970s build, so we were, a big red flag. Like, oh man, we got cast iron pipe. It's 50 years old. We're gonna be digging all this up soon. But once we got into it, just the clean out was cast iron. The pipes coming out of the building were PVC. The main drain line was clay. So I thought that was a unique setup. So it was good for us that they had PVC and they had clay. But yeah, that first initial red flag when we saw the cast iron pipes, it was it was a couple of days of waiting for the plumber to get out there. Like, oh, okay, what are we going to do with this? Because that's if you don't know, that's for the listeners. Once you see cast iron pipes on a building, they corrode. They definitely have a hard shelf life on them, about 50, 60 years. They're going to close up on you, and you're talking six figures easy on an apartment complex to have those drain lines dug up and relayed. So definitely do not skip, to Robert's point, do not skip the getting the lines scoped. Very, very important.
Yeah. Also electrical too, really depending on the year. You can get into aluminum wiring, which is in the 70s, is a totally different ball of wax. And some insurance companies don't even cover it if it has aluminum wire. So you're really looking at those things with specialty contractors. If you don't know that, definitely piping, electrical, roofing, all that is crucial because it's your big ticket items. It's the same thing with HVAC. HVAC system goes down, you're going to spend $5,000-$6,000 to replace it if you need to change out the whole unit.
Yeah, it's funny. Me and Steve just laughed at when you mentioned the wiring, because the same property.
Like, was he looking at the property?
Yeah,
were you at the
half of the exterior? What are they? Distribution panels. Steve found that were still Federal Pacific panels, so they had the aluminum buses. So also dealing with that at this property. But we have Steve on our team, who is an inspector, and he caught that very quickly. And again, that would have been a $25,000-$30,000 expense to have those changed out if we didn't catch it during due diligence, which we're in now. So definitely have a master electrician when they go to the property, look at the panels, look at the wiring, things like that. Because now we're ahead of that curve. Now we can go back and talk to the sellers about, hey, I didn't know if you knew this, but we're probably not going to be able to get insurance on this because of these aluminum wirings, aluminum buses. So let's talk, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned it there too, Robert. It's exact to your point. That's why we're definitely laughing, because it's like we get all these same questions. Literally just went through this.
Yeah.
And then it's specifically about the insurance, because it's like, okay, well, we already knew to kind of look for that, but that's a question from the insurance company. Hey, do you have these brands? Like, hey, do you have aluminum wiring? And if you're not already prepared for that kind of stuff and to answer those questions, then you're not looking for it necessarily when you're out doing due diligence. So yeah, no, those are huge. And yeah, it's funny. It's like, man, he's like the fifth partner, sixth partner.
Yeah, it's like, did you see this place?
I know.
Anyway, yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, due diligence, it's very important. You want to talk to, get checklists, stay very disciplined, right? When you get on a property during due diligence, you get into like this frenzy of like you're excited and you just want to skip around and stuff like that. You got to stay focused, stay due diligence, have a checklist, work the checklist, bring in subs to help you with their expertise. It's definitely something where you don't want to skimp out, $1,000 on, because you don't want to pay to get the lines scoped, because it's going to cost you $100,000 if you miss it. So awesome tips there. All right, I think my last question. So I saw on your social media and the platform you have, or you help out with, that you're working, the company you're building is you bring your family in a lot on it. So when you are building your company and your business, how do you go about that? How do you create this family business to bring everybody in and help them to see the vision of multifamily?
So you talking about on Facebook or my group, or just in general?
Just in general.
Well, I have 4 daughters. They're in 4 different states. I have grandkids. I talk to them. I ask them to read books. Recently on Facebook, I shared a post about me giving them books. They read it. They give me a report back, and I give them $50.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great thing. I don't have to read them all, and I get a report back, but it's huge. I'm not a big book reader. I do audibles a lot. So, but basically the same. It's a lot of education that you can learn, either from mindset to real estate, but it really building, a network around yourself and talking about your success. And, my daughters have seen what we've had done in my life. My daughters are doing it. One of them, the first house was a house hack. It was a duplex. Now she's moved on. She's bought another house, and now the duplex is strictly investment. Another one just moved in, renovated. Now she's looking for another house. They're going to move, and they basically house hacked that. So another one is looking to get her real estate license. So every one of my daughters are different. So they're doing it a little bit different way, but they definitely see the opportunities out there, and to take their own path, capitalize and see the opportunity and make things happen.
Nice. Yeah, it's awesome to see when real estate seems to have it's one industry where whoever the person that started is tries to bring everybody in, and everybody can learn it and create that generational type wealth and business out of it. And see that a lot more in real estate investing than you do in pretty much any other business or industry out there. So it's awesome to see when families get involved and all see the vision of how the power of what real estate can do or investing or multifamily can do for their futures and their families. That's awesome. All right, Steve, back to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, Vince and I both have young kids, but that's one of those things. Like I have 2 daughters, and of course, like that's something long term. It's like, oh man, like that's always been something my wife and I have talked about. It's like setting up that generational wealth, kind of transitioning them, making sure that they understand that, see that, and understand that it's available for them too. So that's huge. So I mean that's got to put a big smile on you and your wife's face, in terms of, oh look, the kids are, they're running with the ball, like that's great.
Yeah, I had someone come up to me, and this is really important since we're on this, is that obviously you all know that, real estate investing is quite a few different ways of investing. And the first thing I always ask is somebody asks me, say, how can I get into real estate investing? I said, first of all, you need to learn the different ways of getting in the real estate. And that's either, passive, flipping houses, wholesaling, multifamily, whatever it is, but you need to know what your strengths are. And if you have 100,000 to be passive, that's fine. But if you have that construction knowledge and you want to flip a house and make, 30,000, 40,000 in 5-6 months, I mean, that's something that you need to think about, but know and learn before you get into it, because obviously it's a lot of money that you're putting in, a lot of work you're putting in, but really know what direction you're going to go with, not necessarily follow somebody, but you don't have that superpower or that knowledge to do it. But definitely read books, audibles, podcasts. That's something I definitely would recommend.
No, that's a great thing too, right? Like information age and all that. I mean, the information now is so much more easily accessible than ever before. It's almost like, okay, look, there's just like you're saying, look, Audible, you don't enjoy reading books, totally fine. Pick up Audible, go YouTube. Like there's a million different resources out there available now. So yeah, that's great. Well, speaking of superpowers, every one of our episodes here, we have a section of the show called the Fire Round. So I'm just going to ask you a few different questions here, and just give us your answers and for the audience here. So you ready?
Sounds good.
All right. So what is the best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
That's funny. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great one. I'm going to go out on a limb, and some people may like them and some people don't, but the 10X rule. Grant Cardone, he's pretty bold, but he tells you exactly what it is. And the biggest thing that I got out of that book is really having the mindset and not getting excuses and having that goal and sticking with it and getting yourself around positive people that want to move forward in their life instead of being around negative people. That brings you down. And, if you got big goals and you want to do things to get ahead and get your family ahead, you definitely want to have that mindset and take action every day and 10X everything if you can. It's pretty tough every day, but, the biggest thing is really having that mindset. And that book really puts you in a place. One of my favorites, honestly.
Yep, mine as well. Definitely I'm looking at my vision board over here, my motivation board, and I have the quote on there, like set goals based off of your potential, not your current capabilities. And I think a lot of people don't do that. When they set goals, they're looking at what they think they can do right now. So if you don't know anything about real estate, your goal is going to be really low, right? And it doesn't leave, like, you put a mental cap on what you think you can achieve because you're just looking at, okay, this is what I'm capable of doing now, and doesn't leave any room for growth. And that's why I like the 10X rule, because he's like, just 10 times whatever you want to do, 10 times it, because now you're forced to grow. You're forced to become the person that you need to be to achieve that goal. And that's what really helped me out. And again, one of my favorite books as well, because it really, really changed my life on that, of just because I was thinking so small, like I'm just going to get a couple duplexes and I'm doing great. And when you really think about like the life I wanted to live, I was like, I need a lot of duplexes for my family. So that's when, read that book, read a couple others, and really just stopped making excuses, took full action, full accountability for my life, my family, and it's been great the last 2 years. Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, great suggestion on that one. And for anybody who hasn't gotten into that book, I highly recommend doing the Audible on that one, because you hear Grant. I feel like I can still hear him now. 10x, baby, 10x.
I've listened to the Audible and read the book.
There you go.
Yeah, because it is him on the Audible.
I feel like you can't pick up that whole book without like hearing him and hearing his voice. All right, next question. What is your superpower?
My superpower would be more, I would think, a team building. Whatever you do in life's a team. If you don't take and use everyone around you and use their superpower or their specialty or whatever you want to call it to help the others. So, if you're not good at underwriting, if you're not good at construction, find somebody that knows that and get them involved with your goals or in your team to succeed. And that's with anything. If you have a business, making sure that everybody that you have employed or working with you is going to feed off of each other and make it a great team. And that's, know what your weaknesses are and know what your strengths are.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the team concept is huge. I am not a strong underwriter, and spreadsheets is not like my strong point at all. But Vince is an ace over there, and our other partner Duke as well. They're just like love living in spreadsheets, and I'm like, oh, that's not me. but that's the concept of the team, right?
I'm basically the same way.
All right. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey, through real estate and now, kind of stepping into, the multifamily side?
The biggest lesson I've learned is you can do anything. It just, again, finding out what's that missing part. I mentioned it earlier, was the funds, the money. I knew the background, I knew the management, the construction, but I always had, well, how can I come up with $1 million and buy this, or 50,000, whatever it is find out what your obstacle is, and then find out a way to get to it, or to complete that answer for you and move forward from it. And the biggest thing I did is the network. The people that were around me. It's not necessarily have all the money, but it's just the education of multifamily, of buying property. I didn't have that around me. So I went out and went to ride, to multifamily conferences and network with people that knew that, so I can learn more. And that was my missing part. So really finding out what your weakness is and make it strong by networking, learning, and never say that you can't do anything.
No, that's great.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna jump in real quick. Yeah. that is a huge foot stomp moment too, and that's a true mark of a entrepreneur. Is entrepreneurs don't say can't, right? They say how. Like I can't raise $1 million. They sit around and they go, okay, well, how can I raise $1 million? And they sit there and work on this problem. Might take them weeks, it might take them months. But if they're in that mindset of how instead of can't, they're constantly in the back of their head trying to solve these problems, and eventually they'll get there. It'll be on the front of their mind, and they're solving the problem. And they walk into a meetup or a conference, like one of the big ones that the coaches put on, and they'll meet that one person that says, hey, I got $1 million, but I don't know anything about Sunbelt real estate. And then you're like, oh, that's all. Then it just clicks, and then like this magic happens. And I can't tell you how many times that has happened over the last couple of years. But it's always from the mindset for me is going in there. Well, how can I do this? And then you find you identify that missing piece, that puzzle piece you were talking about. And then as long as that's always on your mind, every conversation you have, every interaction you have, you're looking for that person or that thing that can fit that puzzle piece and to that problem you have. And it's it's pretty magical when they click together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
You have to have a team. You have to have a strong team.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you have to, that's a huge thing in terms of solving. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're only getting compensated for creating value and for solving problems, right? And you're not going to be able to solve problems if you're just stuck in, well, I guess I can't do it. Yeah, good things start happening when you say, how can I? So yeah, that's huge. So Robert, for the busy working professional, is working towards, financial freedom and kind of bettering their position. Like, what advice do you have for them?
Just never give up. Just have a goal, know what you want, and go for it. Take action, massive action, 10x.
Nice.
That would be my advice. Really knowing, what you want. If you don't, just keep moving forward. Don't look back.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a great one for us to kind of wrap up on. It's just bottom line, just take action, right? Get out there, fail forward, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, so as we wrap up here, people want to get in touch with you. How can they get in contact with you? How can they make some connection?
So I'm always on Facebook. I've created. I'm the creator of a multifamily asset management and value add Facebook group. That's my group. So I'm always on there. Put videos and add things, educational things on there. So you can reach out to me, Facebook, LinkedIn, or my email, rns4investment@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, Robert, it's been a true pleasure having you on the show today. We're excited to have, had our listeners to be able to learn and glean from a little bit of, what you've done over the years here. And so, we're excited to had you on the show, and looking forward to some future interaction with you.
Hey, thank you for having me. And I hope everyone gets some value from it. I appreciate it.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, Robert.